I remember having a conversation with you a couple of months back, and it alludes to the last point that you made about the extraction of the expressions from paintings, from copyright works, and so on. And you use the word essence.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. Maybe you can explain a little bit more to the audience, right? When you use, how do you think of it as the essence, that word?
Yeah, so the way I thought of the word essence is I copied it. So in U.S. copyright law and legal texts around copyright, they're very, very careful to distinguish essence from expression. And so, and I'm only, again, the caveat is I only speak to American law, but it may be similar here in Singapore as well. But the basic idea for the intellectual property framework is that there are a few ways you can protect ideas. Patents is one way, and patents and trade secrets protect ideas, the essence. But copyright affects, and fair use, they affect and they address the expression. So that distinction is really important, because if you think about it from a moral rights perspective, we don't really want a government that can regulate what we can and cannot think, right? I mean, thoughts, ideas are sort of, they're everyone's, except again with patents and trade secrets. But when we look at the Constitution and the founding documents in America, the ideas about offering any kind of protection around this or limitation on ideas, it was always with the purpose of driving economics for incentivizing the creators with economic value. But it was always time limited, right? It was like you get patents for 20 years or something like this. So that is from there that I get this expression versus essence thing. And this is so important essentially now because LLMs, we can see, they are essence extractors. Given any expression, I can extract the essence, and I can make a new expression that's a little bit over here, different, just enough different so that it's different from your expression, but close enough that I can still go and derive economic benefit from it. And if we have this, now it completely changes the equation and the conversation around how do we continue to economically incentivize creators.
Right. So I think, when I had that conversation with Peter a couple of months ago, it really started to help me crystallize, right? All these advances and changes that's coming with generative AI, right? It's the extraction of that essence. So it's not, so a lot of people still think that, there's a copy of my image or my text in the LLMs or foundation model. No, there's no copy of that. It is really the essence of the text, essence of the image that has been stored and then being reproduced in novel ways again. The other one that was really interesting when we had a discussion earlier this morning, and you also mentioned here, is the values that's embedded into LLMs now. Some of you may have seen a post about LLMs having different values. Some are more left-leaning, some are more right-leaning. That's actually now embedded into such LLMs, and maybe you can explain a little bit more on the dangers, because nowadays, previously technology did not embed values or very little, but today it is very, very different.
Yeah, so I think there's, let's see, the best way to say it is that technology always changes society in some way or shape or form. And the way it changes society is not obvious oftentimes until many years later. And so technology tends to not be value neutral, but we don't really know what are the values. And to be very concrete, for instance, if I make a gun, right? So when someone invented the gun, one could say, well, there are some values in a gun because a gun is used ultimately to shoot things and kill them. But is the gun a good thing or a bad thing? Because if you use it to hunt and then it gets you food for your family, it's a good thing. So the values of a gun are good. If you use it to kill or murder people, willy-nilly, then it's quite bad. If you use it to stop a bad person in the act of doing something horrible, then it's good. So the gun itself doesn't have values, it's a tool, right? And so a lot of technology, we can sort of look at it and say that's pretty much values neutral. But then later we realized, oh no, there were some values in it. The ability to kill people from a distance does actually change the values of society. And even something like a camera. Okay, a camera is a camera, it's great. You take a picture of something and you have like a memory of a place or a person, that's wonderful. But once you can now reproduce that picture all over the place and distribute it to everyone, you're subtly changing the values of society, because now people are going to gravitate towards what's aesthetically pleasing or what's aesthetically transferable, as opposed to cultivating interior or internal things that are hard to see, right? And certainly front-facing cameras on phones, right, create an entire generation of teenagers who have body image issues and depression issues and mental health issues. And that's just by sticking a camera from the back side of the phone to the front of the phone. So that simple technological change embedded a value in it that we didn't see for quite some time. Now, all that preamble builds to LLMs. LLMs, we can see from right now that there's values embedded in them. If we train it with a lot of left-leaning content, they're going to be pretty leftist. If we train it with a lot of right-leaning content, it's going to be kind of right-wing. And it's just almost a mathematical consequence of the data you put into it. And if you say, well, we don't want it to be one way or the other, we're going to put filters in place, we're going to check to make sure that it's very balanced and neutral. Well, it's your opinion of balanced, right? It's your opinion of what's neutral. And there's some interesting things showing up now too, where research showing that as they're trying to build these models, they're trying to make them not be racist or not be Nazis or not be whatever. To do that really well, you have to have it be really, really good at being a racist, so it knows not to be the racist. And you're like, well, gosh, it's kind of a terrible way to have to build this system, right? So as we're building these things, we have to think about, yeah, what are the values explicitly that we want it to have? And there is no, I think, singular right answer. It is dependent on the society, or dependent on the company, or dependent on the whatever, right? So this is a technology that we cannot, even from the beginning, pretend is value neutral.
Yeah, so with that, maybe we'll open up to the floor for questions. Anyone? Anything from the discussion so far to whether on Anaconda, you have the founder here, on the tool, you like, you don't like, this is the time for you to complain. Singaporeans are
Python, Julia, Rust.
Yeah, maybe you want to ask, right? When will Anaconda support Julia or Rust, right? Those are upcoming languages.
So my question is, in this spectrum, what about when the media, the SME, we don't have the resource to build solution, and we don't know how to build it themselves. So in that case, what's your thought on AI adoption for SMEs?
That's a great question, and I'll repeat it for everyone in case you can hear it. The question is, what is if I'm a subject matter expert in a business, what is my path?
Yeah, I think when he mentioned SME, is small medium enterprise.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, small medium enterprise. Ah, okay. I'm glad I tried to repeat the question. Okay. So, and the question is this, like, so AI startups, right? They know how to build things. They have technical expertise. They're moving fast. They can adopt AI. And then big business, they can hire people in who have the AI expertise. But if you're small medium enterprise, right? You don't quite have the resources, and you also maybe don't have the IT expertise to implement some of these things. And the only answer I have for you is probably one you're not going to like, which is you're going to have to get that expertise, right? But the good news is, if you put in the work, you will be much more advantaged over someone who is a generic AI practitioner. And this is the really interesting thing. It's almost beautifully fractal about the AI revolution. Data becomes extremely important. Context becomes extremely important. Business insights and deep, maybe multi-decades of expertise in a particular business area becomes extremely valuable. And this is something that I sort of saw through my consultancy, trying to go and take Python data science solutions to different people in different lines of business. So a line of business owner inside a big business is somewhat like an SME, because they have limited budgets to do this and that and the other. IT kind of supports them, but oftentimes doesn't. They're kind of off on their own a little bit. And what we saw was that they knew their problem better than anyone else. And so if they worked with us as experts to help them implement some of the solutions underneath it with Python, they could go much further, much faster. Now, with the AI stuff, I think the barrier to learning AI is much lower than learning a lot of complicated data science, machine learning stuff. And if you put in that effort, you will go further. than a generic AI startup trying to solve problems in your overall category, right? So if you're, let's say you work in logistics or you work in some kind of like shipping sort of stuff, maybe there's an AI startup that's going to go build a really good like shipping solution or something. But if you know the needs of your specific customers, like maybe refrigerated goods or large industrial goods, maybe if you work in a particular geography and you have something deep knowledge about seasonality and weather effects in that geography, you can build much better effective stuff that's contextualized to your problem. And that is yours to own, and you can build a business niche around that. Make sense?
And I also like to add, and I think he's very modest, he forgot. Most SMEs will have people who know Excel, and now with Anaconda you have Python in Excel. I think that's also another route. So typically I would advise for SMEs, right? So in the AI Singapore we have this AI readiness index. AI unaware, aware, ready, and competent. For those who can really build AI products and are willing to hire engineering teams, we consider them as AI ready and competent, and that's where our 100E can come in and help. And for the unaware and aware, the recommendation for SMEs is, well, if you are not going to build your own AI team, then you become very good consumers of existing AI tools in the market, right? That's the route that I think the most practical. But things like what Peter said is changing. Today with LMs, Python in Excel, it's going to be easier and easier for even small companies and SMEs to actually build not a product to sell to other people, but to increase their productivity in-house. So what are things that these SMEs need to really know is, for example, how to analyze data. So you're not going to need to know now that, oh, there's this package called scikit-learn that you need to use. But now you need to know, okay, I have this tabulated data. I want to do a prediction over the next 6 months of my sales. You need to be able to articulate the various steps of exactly what you want to do. And that's something that most people can learn in probably a couple of weekends of whether it's an online course or whatever. And once you are able to articulate that, LMs are here to generate the code for you. And I think even moving forward, we'll probably get to a stage where you won't even see the code being generated. You just tell the LM, this is my data, I want to do this. They will generate the answer for you. Now, whether you can trust the outcome at all, not today, probably, but maybe in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, some of this will become good enough to be used on a commercial basis. I don't know, what do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I think that the verification and validation step is really important, but that's okay. I mean, if you think about industrial systems in general, how much effort goes into safety engineering? How much of an airplane is redundant systems, safety, making sure passengers survive if a 1 in a million event happens, okay? Well, that's a lot of engineering. The airplane would be much cheaper, much lighter if you didn't have all that stuff on it, okay, but also be much less safe. So with LLMs and with this kind of technology, you can get there faster, but there's still validation steps you have to do if you want to be honest with yourself about the results. And that's just kind of natural engineering kind of trade-offs that you have to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to invite you to speculate on how education should change.
In the next 12 to 18 months or the next 12 to 18 years?
Well, next 5 years.
Next 5 years. Next 5 years, I think, will be somewhat tumultuous because there are going to be many people who lean into the possibilities and get very creative with it. And there's going to be a lot of people who are very reticent and who are going to entrench and try to defend their economic interests in the current infrastructures. I don't know how it is in Singapore, but certainly in America, education is very big business. And a lot of people make a lot of money in the educational industry that don't have anything to do with education, right? So I think that this is going to be one of those things that will take more than 5 years to really play out. But I hope, in 10 or 15 years' time, what we'll see is that we're going to have technical facility, or we'll have technology starting from this current moment. These technologies will really allow everyone to be lifelong learners. It will ultimately keep every child is born curious. And in America, and again, I don't know about Singapore, but in America, the education system, with sort of this exponential decay, kills the curiosity for most of the kids. And they become very boring and very afraid adults. The curiosity is not there anymore, except maybe in small pockets. And I'm hoping that with this technical innovation that's happening now, we'll actually be able to build generation upon generation of humans that remain curious, that engage deeply with the world around them, with each other, facilitated by this kind of technology. So education as a process or a phase goes away and it becomes a part of the way of life. And that, I think, would be really where I think these things should end up. But my personal mission is to make sure that, as what we did with Anaconda, the reason why we did these open source data science tools was because I felt that it was, I was making a lot of money doing consulting for Goldman Sachs and for JP Morgan and all these people. And I saw that there's no reason why school children in every country on the planet couldn't have access to the same tools and get access to the data sets and ask questions and model their world, understand the world. I think that AI and LLM technologies just take that to the next level, right? And I want to see that universally available for everyone. And that's the mission, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One more question.
Yes, Henry.
The innovations that we have been trying to build in our companies comes with risks that you have just mentioned. The regulations being not, our education, our knowledge being behind. Maybe perhaps the AI readiness index is one answer to it. Like, do you have any ideas how to augment the cost of the problems in making the education of such risk costly to an organization and make this a pain so that we can invest more vigorously in understanding these things inside our organizations? Do you have any ideas on how to make this an important agenda in the board?
I think the question is, he needs some help to convince his bosses to invest more into AI.
Okay.
The understanding of the risk part of catching up on the dangers of our code as we copy them, for example, and put into our codes.
Well, I think I'm going to get very pragmatic with my answer, right? Which is that there's only, I would ask you why you want to convince them, right? And the reason I ask that question that way is because if you're really passionate about improving something at the company or in the business, that's great for you, but that can't be your job alone to own, right? Ultimately, your boss and your boss's boss and someone all the way up the chain, they have to actually care about this as well. And the reason I say this kind of silly thing is because what I've noticed is in big businesses and big institutions suffer from organizational decay and apathy. And so you can fight ignorance, but you really can't fight apathy because people continue to get paid for making bad decisions and good decisions. You cannot fight against that, right? And so what you should do in that case is learn the most you can from your colleagues and coworkers, learn the most about the problem, and go and build a competing startup to take their lunch. And that is the natural cycle of life, right? But I'm quite serious, I'm not even laughing, but I'm just telling you because I spent my 20s and 30s trying to help customers do better with a passion that they themselves didn't have. And I said, this is pointless, why am I doing they're paying me to solve the problems, but they're not gonna pay me to care more about the problems than they do. So that's what I would say is that if you're unless you have a different extrinsic reason for caring about the problem, that's like, oh, it's about solving climate change or it's some social issue I want to really passionately work on, then you can keep trying to punch and fight. But if it's a commercial activity, just compete, just outcompete them.